Hello, dear. Thank you so much for watching BS News International rebroadcast from Ivory Coast. We are very happy to have you as a viewer in this television. We talk about the issue in Africa, and today we are going to talk about DRC matter, which is very complicated in this moment. We know that President Tshisekedi is trying to work hard to make sure that his country is back in terms of security and all the purpose that the country is facing. With me here, we have our guest, Dr. Samuel Mati, our guest, Dr. Monty, MC Monty. Doctor, thank you so much for having you again in this program. Can you please tell us a little bit about how you've been following the situation in DRC?
First of all, greetings from Toronto, Canada, where I'm at present. And I've been following matters since my departure several years ago, where I was involved in teaching at one of the private universities in Congo, listening from former students, faculty members, and of course with the media in French and in English, and then with my contacts or people within the United Nations. And I am very distressed as to what is happening in DRC, not only with the conflict in the East, which is significantly attributed to a lack of what I term civic, civil, social cohesion in terms of unemployed people not being treated with what I call monetary respect by the consortiums that are extracting the minerals, with an inferior public administrative system, and then, of course, the military, which is poorly maintained, poorly administered. And then you have Paul Kagame from Rwanda, whose only goal is to extract and steal because he recognizes his country is overpopulated and he lacks viable minerals which he can sell on the open market to allow his regime, which I consider to be highly autocratic, if not criminal.
Yeah. So, Dr. Mati, you've been follow up this situation in DRC. We've seen that since Goma has been captured by M23, the Congolese government have been trying his best to take a control those two cities. But the M23 says that this city will not be taken from them as well. And we saw some negotiation going around regarding the peace deal in DRC Congo. How far this peace deal can help Congolese people to get back their country?
Peace is always preferable to violence, but peace needs to be conducted by the parties that are willing to understand and to negotiate in service of the peoples as opposed to personal needs. And sadly, DRC since 1960 has been in a status what I call trembling, that governance has existed only Potemkin, only facile, only in words, not in deed. And sadly, with Lumumba, and it all goes back to how he was treated, notwithstanding, he was very, very zealous and, of course, incurred not the support, the wrath of all peoples because it was the height of the Cold War. And sadly, Patrice Lumumba was not assisted by the people he surrounded himself with. And then you had the intervention by not only Russia, but by the United States that wished to take him out because of the valuable minerals. And since then, Congo has never recovered because you had the kleptocracy of Mobutu, and then you had Kabila the elder coming in for much the same reasons. What's happening now with Felix Tshisekedi is that there is not a governance structure. It's basically governance a la poche by extraction. And so there's very little loyalty. That loyalty that is purchased, loyalty that can be bought and sold on the open market is not what I call epistemic systemic loyalty that you need to have within the DRC zeitgeist. You need to have drafted a public administrative system which is operational that the people can deal with on matters large and matters small. And I'm dealing primarily with education and health care and delivery of goods and services. And of course, valued employment, not employment which is on the street, but employment where you gain tariffs, where you gain assistance, And then you start building up a reciprocity with the government. And then the government can be held accountable, because literally it's in the majority of African states, the government does not deem itself to be accountable to the people, because all they do is take and they don't necessarily give, and the people exist on the margins. There's always talk, talk, talk. And in Congo, it's achieving what I call a crescendo moment, because Felix Tshisekedi, for all his good words, in my opinion, is absolutely incompetent and is surrounding himself by people that are venal. And he himself, I'm talking about Tshisekedi, does not stand up for what needs to be said because he is fearful. And the deal that has been made, or the putative deal, because I do not know exactly what the terms or the limits are, to me are grasping at straws, because it's not a deal in favor of the Congo people. We can explore that later if you so desire.
So what will be the solution on the side of government to tackle this problem? We know that corruption has been always a problem for DRC Congo. Many Congolese thought that the government is not doing enough to tackle this situation. That is why some of the area that has been taken from a rebel. And we saw also on the rebel side say that President Felix Tshisekedi government, they are corrupted. They have some cases that is happening in DRC. This is what is make the country weak. So how can we, what can we say in terms of M23, who has been gaining more land and the city from the eastern part of the Democratic of Congo?
Let's be very clear. The M23 is Paul Kagame, whether he says so or not, but it's Paul Kagame. It's Rwanda, and it's purely to extract land and resources, because Kagame believes that Rwanda 100 plus years ago was denied, attributed to tribal reasons, land that now is within the geographic confines of DRC. That is the underpinning of now the insurgency. And of course, it's exacerbated because the population is demotivated, that they only wish to be left in peace. And they have not been supported by the Congolese government. The UN has been, in my opinion, and this is based on my time there when I was there quite extensively, that the UN, of course, is hobbled, and that their soldiers are not the best disciplined. And that's strictly due to the contracts, because with the contracts, you're unable to have what I call first line troops, let's say from the West or from Europe, that you need to deal with primarily African nations. And I say this with the utmost respect, that they are as good as the leadership. And sadly, the leadership among these African UN deployed troops is inferior. And I'm referring to the Pakistanis, and I'm referring to the Bangladeshis and the Nigerians. I have the utmost respect, and I've had conversations with the military leadership. Some of them are aware of the problem, but then again, their state are using these deployments to extract resources to go back to the home government. That it's monetary, and it's not the interest. And the UN basically is an institution that is dependent on external funding. It has no internal reserves. It has no internal military that they can resort to as a force de frappe. And that is attributed to the originality of the UN. And I suspect that the two members of the Veto 5 would not be enthusiastic. And I'm referring to Russia and I'm referring to China. Because can you imagine what would happen if the UN had a constituted discipline? It did not necessarily need to be large, but of soldiers from multinationals, trained, well-equipped, that could go in on a micro scale and then deliver. And then as the former Canadian Romeo Dallaire said, when he was force commander in Rwanda in 1994, he pleaded that give me a battalion and I can hold, because a disciplined battalion can hold out 10 times, if not 20 times, the number of an opposing force. And to that, he was denied. Stand by, stand down. And now we know what's happened, because this is all post hoc 1994 with what happened in Rwanda. And we're paying dearly. And we're paying multi-billions. And if I can go on the record, the MONUSCO has been a tragedy. Billions wasted for nothing. And I say that because I have been in Congo, I have been in the East, I've traveled and I've talked. And to me, I'm in absolute despair. And to a limited extent, I hold my government, Canada accountable, because we talk. An African program, which was delivered before the election, which now will go into abeyance. It's just talk.
So, Dr. Monti, let me come back on what you say. The President Paul Kagame still saying M23 are not Rwandese. M23 are not Rwandese. They are Congolese. And we saw also the M23 government, the M23 leaders who say that they are not Rwandese. They even show us that there was a Rwandese that has been captured, the FDLR, and some of the rebels that they have captured. They still say that they are not Rwandese. How do you think that it's Paul Kagame that he's the man?
Where are they getting their weapons? Not from the DRC. You need to look at the understructure. I mean, one can say many things, but the facts belie that. Why is Kagame saying all this? He's been outed on several elements. He is supporting, whether direct or indirect, it's now more direct, and he now has no shame. And that is part of what I call this resource extraction deal that's being signed. I mean, the details are still somewhat obscure. I'm only familiar with what has been made public, and it's not a good deal for the DRC. It's a good deal for the companies. It's a good deal for Paul Kagame indirectly, but it's not a good deal for the people.
Okay, so now we have President Donald Trump who's back in power. He wants to really to make America first and to make sure some African countries that they are good in the peace and let's say democracy. We seen that the President Felix Tshisekedi has been working hard to get the support from the US so that he can handle this security problem in DRC. And one of the deal was the American government to take some mineral and in exchange to give a security to Congolese country. Do you believe that?
In my learned, earned judgment distilled, all Felix Tshisekedi is seeking is to protect himself and his cadre of miscreants and using the United States as a foil. That with this agreement, that perhaps, or maybe implicit, that the US, which I don't believe they will do, is send in some forces, some soldiers, because he is looking to protect himself. His regime is cheddar cheese. There are holes left, right, and center. It all goes back to when he was the election, which he did not win. And everything fell from that. That he, to say the legitimacy is suspect by many people, but it's furthered by what I call his administrative incompetence. That a good leader, and that is being the tragedy in all of Africa. But the future, Africa's population is growing. It has the largest percentage of youth in the world. The economics are going to be shifting to Africa. Africa's greatest strength is the people, human capital, and the resources. Africa's greatest weakness, and I say this for the most part of Africa, is the leadership. And that is something that cannot be done in 1, 2, or 3 years. It requires generations. And there I call the underpinning. It's geography, it's education, and resources. And a government basically is what I call a caretaker to ensure that those 3 triads are protected, that the geography is understood and agreed, whether in DRC, whether Malawi or South Africa, that the geography is agreed, notwithstanding how it was created, but you learn to agree. And then you use the resources, the human capital, as well as the natural resources. But it needs to be furthered through education, not only academic, intellectual, but with the skilled trades, which are absolutely fundamental. And that is going to be the future, not only in DRC, but also in sub-Saharan Africa. And then the continent will flourish. But that will require many years. And it takes a leader willing to admit, I am merely a caretaker, and I'm going to be at service. And I'm going to be absolutely transparent in terms of how my dealings are. And I'm going to make the same request of my executive, that they're not to with emolument. But now, unfortunately, we have mob boss in Washington, D.C. And the most recent egregious example is
So we lost Dr. Monty. Hi, dear viewer. Thank you so much for staying with us. We lost our guest in this time. We hope
I'm
that
here.
you will easy back, easy back. Can you hear us, Dr. Monty? Can you hear us?
Absolutely. I hear you loud and clear. We were just
We
cut off
lost
for
your
a moment or two.
pictures. We lost your pictures. Can you come back in our studio,
Do
please?
you have my picture?
No, we lost your pictures.
I
Yeah, we lost your pictures.
Do you have it now?
It's completely dark, 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 dark. So, dear viewers, stay with us. We have a technical problem with Dr. Marty's side. When he's back, we'll continue our story. We were talking about DRC Congo, the situation of DRC, which is really critical. We know that the Congolese government is trying to negotiate with American to get support from US so that they can secure the eastern part of Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Congo, you need first to know about the history of Congo, how Congo's found himself in this situation that has become very tough and very difficult. This started after the genocide in Rwanda, so when what the Rwandese government calling today genociders left Rwanda, they enter in DRC Congo, what we call today FDLR. And those FDLR, they has been in DRC for decades, but the Congolese government has always said that they are not there, and there was not a proof of those FDLR to be in DRC Congo. So now what we see in M23 can show us what he called to be a dealer. And we know that this has been always a problem for Rwanda. Rwanda government always say that this is a serious problem. So we hope that we'll have a Dr. Monty back in this program. Doctor, can you hear us? We can't see you. Can you
I can
hear
hear
us?
you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but we can't see you. Can you disconnect and connect again?
Yes, I will try that.
So, dear viewer, we will come back in this program for a few minutes. Just stay with us while we are putting the program for our channel for you. Just stay with us. So, the DRC has been for a long time in the situation that the government is trying to make best to organize everything. So we have Dr. Monty back. Yes, we have him back. So we'll shortly get him back.
I can hear you.
So Dr. Monty, thank you so much for your effort. You are back on our program. Please continue.
Thank you. As I was saying before we were disconnected, is that it's difficult because it's all interconnected because we have a United States which is governed by an individual who is primarily concerned with his own monetization for himself, his family, and friends. And that does not set a good example, particularly in DRC. And that is why I consider this mineral deal to be somewhat suspect, because all the details have not been released. And as I indicated further, Felix Tshisekedi is doing it for his own safety and protection. He knows that the walls are falling in, that he, for whatever reason, I don't know because I cannot read his mind, is either unable or incapable to exercise governance. And for me, a leader is admitting and taking the long steps and declaring publicly that I'm not in it for myself. I am here to do what needs to be done. and then to inspire, to create trust among the citizen. And that also is what is happening in the East, because the people feel or believe that they are no longer being valued and considered. And then when you have external forces, the resistance is merely leave us alone, allow us to farm. And those that are working in the extractive industries are basically working for a pittance. There are very, very few that I call that are in the skilled trades. And that's where what I believe education in terms of acquiring these skill sets, because with these multinationals, they should be employing at least 95% of national people, but in all sectors, from the highest to the lowest, and only a few internationals heads to monitor. And that is what is going to create what I call a revenue stream, which needs to be taxed openly, taxed within a regulation that is known, so there's no surprise. And that tax or resources can be then used for what I call infrastructure, whether it be highways, whether it be the water, whether it be education and healthcare. But that will require years and years. And I know this from the past, and I know also from theory. When the people recognize that their governments are there to not hinder, but to help, they will support, that they will then reduce their friction. And then Congo will come together. And then you still maintain the culture, because the culture is that liniment that binds any fabric of a society together. Culture and music, culture in the arts, culture in drama, culture in design. And you could have a vibrant, vibrant state. Congo's potential, and I've said this many times, is absolutely awesome. Geography has placed Congo right in the center of Africa. And geography has allowed Congo untold resources. It has a population which is growing and needs to be utilized. Because if Congo is calibrated properly, when Congo talks, Africa listens. What's good for Congo is good for Africa. And hopefully that will be vice versa. It's a reciprocity. And sadly, the governance system in DRC has not quite acquired this element or this taste.
Dr. Moti, you've been in Congo for a decade. You know Congo very well in terms of politics, and you met some of the entourage of the president, Joseph Kabila, to advise in terms of elections. And we know how election went in DRC. We know that today there is a problem between Joseph Kabila, who is the life senators, and with Felix Tshisekedi, who is the president actually. How do you see this conflict to end?
Between Kabila and Tshisekedi?
Yes.
It's in terms of power. To me, I don't know, in a sense. For one that served as president and then has been allowed to live relatively unmolested and to keep a lot of one's gain, one would think that one would enter as a lifetime senator to work for the state, or at least to do least harm. So there's something internal, whether it is the principle or whether it's the people around him, because leadership in DRC, along in Africa, is that the leader enables the people around him, that they support a party or they support the candidate for what they can get, not for what they can give. And who knows what rumblings are around Kabila, because Congo is never direct. To get from A to B, you need to go through C, D, X, Y, and Z. It's so myriad, and that is the Congo matrix. It's within the Congolese system. So the dispute between Tshisekedi and Kabila, is it over ego? Is it over power? Is it over resource? Is it over what can do for one's hangers on? I don't know. All I know, it's not good for the DRC state. It's not advancing the DR state, because both should know better. But that begs the issue: are they themselves in control, or is it at a level to beneath them? And then, of course, you have Kagame really trying to stir the pot, because while they're arguing among themselves, he is doing what he can do, is basically taking the resources and enabling his own governance system, which is.
So, dear viewer, we lost again Dr. Samuel Mati. It looks like he has a connection problem.
I can't hear you.
Yeah. Doctor, can you hear us? We have lost you again. We lost you again. Can you come back to our studio again?
No audio.
Can you hear me? Hello. Hi, viewer. We have to cut this program for today. We have a technical problem. We hope that this problem will be sorted out, and then we'll come back with our next program. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye for now.